Good day everyone, so let's look at Nilou in Sukokomon, of course as a Kokomi main. This is one of the teams I am sort of required to know how to play, and I just thought, well, what would be the implications if we used Nilou instead? Well, firstly, a couple of things change. You cannot play Sukokomon according to the old recipe, so you have to sort of be more creative and so on. And secondly, due to the sort of positioning and so on of the enemies, you've got to be a bit more creative in how you chain abilities and such. So this is not the straightforward I play by the spreadsheet version. This is the much more pragmatic version that actually works, in contrast to what the theory crafters would say. And I must say the results are fairly okay. I mean, I think this is one of the things a lot of people kind of miss about Nilou and so on. And they think that because of her Ascension passive, she's only locked to Dendro and Hydro, but certainly she is first and foremost a Hydro character, and she applies off-field Hydro, which is kind of useful, and hence you can use her in freeze teams like we sort of saw in the previous video. You can use her in reaction based teams like Sukokomon. Now I will be the first to admit that if you have C1 Nilou, something like Sukokomon is infinitely easier and so on, so definitely if you do have her at C1, she's kind of cool. Another little interesting thing about Nilou is if you do use her on field using the alternative like dance step, as you can sort of see here, your sort of lunar prayer, whatever it's called, can actually penetrate through a line of enemies. So I wasn't damaging just one enemy, I was actually damaging both of these enemies. You can go and rewatch the video. That's also something that's really cool about Nilou. Certainly a unique like penetration effect that you don't get on many other units. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, are there better alternatives, like for instance using Kokomi? Yeah, certainly. Obviously in Nilou's Dendro teams, they'll definitely clear a lot faster and so on. My only big problem with Nilou and Sukokomon is not actually Nilou herself, it's the very fact that Xiangling tends to knock people away with overload outside of Nilou's AoE, so that synergy does not really work that well. And obviously since Nilou is a sword user, she's not someone that can still apply a Hydro at a distance like Kokomi can, so this is just once again highlighting how cool Kokomi is. And of course the other obvious thing is you need to be very careful in how you manage your health, which is something that Kokomi does automatically for the team. It just shows you how much utility there is in Kokomi. But of course, like Kokomi, Nilou's got an insane health pool, so you can definitely use it to tank some of the heavier hits and so on. And that is also like a bit of that also involves a bit of the strategy when you use Nilou in these types of teams. One of the fun things about Nilou, of course, is she can apply sort of Hydro in a super wide area. So if you do manage to get the Xiangling and like Sucrose elemental burst to infuse with Pyro and so on, you can get like a very big nice AoE vape bomb with Nilou. It really is satisfying. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's a functional team, but it's certainly not at the top of a meta and so on, but not that the top of a meta actually really matters. So now let's ask ourselves, well, are there any other teams that we can sort of use Nilou in? Well, obviously a taser team is one that comes to mind, and as like with the Sukokomon team, it is a functional team. However, I think in a taser team you do have a lot better alternatives, Tartaglia, Xingshu and Kokomi of course. But nonetheless, you can still make it work, surprisingly enough, as I'll sort of show you in the background. Now, a lot of people have said that one big problem with having Nilou in a taser-like team, especially with Beidou, is the fact that, you know, she can't trigger Beidou's elemental skill. And to that, I say, yeah, it really doesn't matter. You can see in the background footage, because we're just going to use Sucrose to drive the taser team. And it's just as simple as that. The only thing we need Nilou here for is to apply the consistent Hydro. Now, of course, unlike with Kokomi, you can't heal the team, but so you have to play a bit more carefully as well in the taser variant and so on. Of course, one other thing to consider about taser sort of teams is that you don't get the best single target sort of damage. So in this case, I would really not recommend using Nilou against a single target boss in a sort of taser team environment. There are definitely much stronger units, perhaps like Yelan, Xingshu and so on, that could just give you that more consistent damage. But I mean, overall, you've got a Hydro Aura that can run around on the field, and once you've tagged an enemy, you know, they're tagged with Hydro. So in my opinion, Nilou certainly very, very functional.